Marvel Rivals is a new superhero team-based PvP shooter that was just released last month, combining fast-paced action with iconic Marvel characters. Today I'm going to test it out across different settings and share my thoughts on the gameplay, visuals, and whether it's worth playing on the Steam Deck. Let's get into it. Before diving into the gameplay, here's how I tested Rivals. I'm using my original launch edition 512GB Steam Deck. This is the LCD model, not the OLED model. I tested the game on the low graphics preset to try and reach a target of stable 60 FPS in an online match. For the testing scenarios, I started out in practice mode to gauge baseline performance. After that, I jumped into a few online matches to monitor performance during intense action scenes like team fights and ability heavy moments. Let's see how it performed. So let's start with the low preset in practice mode without any other players. At 1280 by 800 native, the game managed about 40 FPS, which was lower than I wanted, and even so, the game looks surprisingly good, especially from a decent viewing distance. Next, I tried enabling FSR Ultra Quality. Performance improved slightly, averaging just under 50 FPS in practice mode. The graphics looked very close to native resolution with almost no noticeable difference in quality. Switching to FSR Balance, I started seeing FPS occasionally going above 50, but it still didn't quite hit my goal of a steady 60. That said, the visuals remained impressive thanks to the Steam Deck's smaller screen size where details still hold up well. Finally, I moved to FSR Ultra Performance. Here, I was able to achieve a steady 60 FPS in practice mode. While there was a slight increase in aliasing compared to other FSR modes in native, the game still looked great on the Steam Deck screen, especially from a normal viewing distance. After locking in 60 FPS with Ultra Performance mode, I decided to test AMD frame generation just for science. Personally, I only enable frame generation when I already have a steady base frame rate. It's really better for enhancing pretty good performance and making it a little better rather than turning poor performance into good performance. It doesn't really work that way. With AMD frame generation on, the FPS jumped to between 100 to 120, but I noticed significant drops during fast movements. While the numbers looked impressive, the gameplay actually felt smoother and more responsive with frame generation turned off. Taking the Steam Deck into some real matches, the FPS varied across different maps. On Klyntar and Tokyo 2099 Shin Shibuya, the CPU seemed to max out at around 40 FPS no matter the graphics settings. However, on Yggsgard on the Throne Room map, I was able to hit a steady 60 FPS with the settings lowered. The first match was on Klyntar, where I started at 1280 by 800 native. The FPS hovered between 30 and 40 with some micro stuttering during intense action sequences. It was playable, but not really ideal. Next, I switched to FSR Balanced. The FPS remained in roughly the same range, but frame drops felt a little bit less jarring, making the experience slightly smoother. However, the improvement wasn't overly dramatic. Then I tested FSR Ultra Performance, and once again the FPS stayed in the 30 to 40 range, but the gameplay felt a touch smoother compared to both native and FSR Balanced. It seems that in actual matches on this map, the Steam Deck hits a CPU bottleneck, meaning changing graphics settings doesn't have as much of an impact as I saw it did in practice mode. Out of curiosity, I enabled frame generation on Ultra Performance. This caused the FPS to jump to the 60 to 70 range. However, the gameplay told a different story. Marvel Rivals relies on quick direction changes and fast movement, and the frame generation algorithm just couldn't keep up. Despite the higher FPS, the experience felt worse overall, with input responsiveness taking a noticeable hit. As I mentioned earlier, frame generation is better for enhancing decent performance rather than fixing poor performance. The last match was on the Throne Room section of Yggsgard. I was able to achieve a steady 60 FPS throughout the match using FSR Ultra Performance. The visuals were smooth and the gameplay felt great. I also tested FSR Balanced just to see what would happen, and the FPS stayed in the 50s. Personally, I prefer using Ultra Performance on this device because Balanced and Ultra Performance ultimately look pretty close visually, but the extra smoothness in gameplay makes it worth it for me to use Ultra Performance. A couple other things to address. As usual, the controls feel great on the Steam Deck. Its ergonomic design, well-placed buttons, and responsive controls make it a joy to play Marvel Rivals on it. Navigating through the menus was smooth and snappy with no noticeable lag in the UI, which is always a plus. Matching into games was nearly instant, and loading into matches was surprisingly quick. It's great to see that even on the Steam Deck, the matchmaking and loading times are pretty well optimized. In terms of battery life, I started with 99% and ended up at around 87% after a single match. That's about a 12% drain per match, so if you're planning on a longer session, I'd highly recommend keeping a charger nearby. Temperatures were within the expected range for a demanding game like this. The GPU hovered between 78 to 80 degrees Celsius, while the CPU ran a bit hotter at around 85 degrees. Since Marvel Rivals runs on Unreal Engine 5, it pushes the deck's hardware to its limit, even on low settings. So, is Marvel Rivals worth playing on the Steam Deck? Absolutely. With the right tweaks, the game runs decently well on heavier maps and can even hit a smooth 60 FPS on certain maps. The controls feel fantastic, and even on lower settings, the game delivers the fast-paced action and iconic Marvel vibes. Having played Rivals on PC, I can confidently say the experience on the deck feels pretty much just as immersive with no significant compromises. For the best experience, I recommend playing on the low graphics preset with FSR Ultra Performance. This setup ensures the best responsiveness, which is crucial for a game like this. Once again, the Steam Deck continues to impress me at its price point, proving it can handle even the latest titles with a bit of optimization. Alright, that's all I got for this one. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more Steam Deck performance reviews and game tests. Let me know in the comments how Marvel Rivals is running on your deck, or if there are any other games you want me to test. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.